inspired that process. I shared an abundance of incredible things, even despite the things that are not going right a lot of times. All it is an abundant acknowledgement of the abundance in our life. And here's my theory is that we always feel gratitude. The problem is that the mind interferes with that, because the mind looks for expectations, and our expectations of what should go right and wrong comes from our environment. So you could have an amazing house, you could have a great routine, you could be healthy, you could have great kids. You will easily sit there and be miserable because the expectations of life do not meet some social or made up expectation in your mind of what is not there. And that's literally our topic, and the reason I'm getting everybody to share this is gratitude before joy. It's a very simple concept and a simple practice, but it's one of those things. The easiest thing to forget is that. And I'll talk about some of the pitfalls, but I'll share what I feel grateful for, and you will see among the chaos you can bring joy and gratitude. So as you guys know, I've been on the road for a couple of weeks now, all sorts of challenges, but also so adventures, explorations. Part of the reason I put myself in these situations is also to, well, kind of put myself and my family in these situations to part of it, test out the resilience in the process. Can we actually, do we just claim to be happy when everything goes right, or we are happy and grateful when things go wrong, when things break apart, when our routine goes away? If I can get my mind to come to this moment, actually, with all the mess around me, with all the things that I have to figure out that haven't worked out, I also actually deeply feel grateful for, like, I was drinking this coffee. Like, I love this. And there's a sticker on it that my younger daughter gave me because she had a spare. Baba, here's a free sticker for you, because she sees me drinking coffee all the time. It says coffee on it. So I put it on my cup. I'm just drinking that. It makes me feel grateful. I feel grateful for, like, in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, having beautiful connection and electricity, and I get to talk to you guys, connect with you guys. And just sharing that, I can actually automatically see, even though I've felt this before, just expressing that to myself and to you guys, I can see my body physiology changing. So we're not just talking about a airy-fairy spiritual concept. We're talking about a physiological, biological reaction as well, which means that there's a biochemical change in my body that's happening. And I would bet that every one of you that shared that, you felt a version of that. And then the label we give it is different labels. We say, I feel happy, I feel joy, I feel a sense of connection, I feel fully engaged in life. All those are synonyms for joy. All those are synonyms for blessed. All those are synonyms that I'm fully living my life. And so what I wanted to, apart from you experiencing and feeling this, what I wanted to spend some time is kind of dig down into what happens when we have access to this all the time in our world, and at times we completely forget it. When problems come in front of us, when challenges come, when chaos comes, when life throws a bunch of stuff at us, when unexpected things happen, can you bring joy in the worst of circumstances? First of all, I encourage you guys to read this book, Man's Search for Meaning. And it's by Viktor Frankl, who was in concentration camps and Nazi times. And he's observing that world from a personal standpoint, and also from a psychological standpoint, because he was a psychiatrist. And he created a whole theory around purpose. And you will see, and he even says it in this book, is like, it's very odd to share that we actually had fun in the concentration camps. From his perspective, they found times to bring humor, joy, connection in the midst of death, destruction, and chaos. And that's the extreme of the human experience, or one of the extremes. And I've also seen that even in my own experience of parents having flee a country, seeing death, seeing destruction, all their life falling apart. They found moments of joy, connection, gratitude, and the worst of circumstances. So, and the reason why I share this is because when you live in a world of comfort, and in the Western world, we all live, and I'm part of the Western world too now, we live in a world of comfort. We forget and when you live in comfort, you want more and more things, but we forget to acknowledge the things that are there. And we fall into the trap of, I have to be grateful. And as soon as you add, I have to be grateful, you added obligation to a feeling that's very natural. That means it becomes a chore. And I don't think those two things work together, because gratitude is actually a very natural feeling. And I'll define that for you, and you experienced it just now. Gratitude is, all it is a feeling of abundance within and without. It means that you feel that you have or are or be something. So that means, for example, I'll give you examples of Thomas expressed, for example, he feels gratitude for the people around him, the positivity that they bring. That's an abundance of positivity from the people around him. Murad shared the abundance of all the things in his life, the soccer that he gets to play with his kid, the kids he gets to raise. Scott shared an abundance of love from those around him when he's in pain. Greg shared an abundance of engagement in his life and the beautiful weather that inspired that process. I shared an abundance of incredible thing, even despite the things that are not going right a lot of times. All it is an abundant acknowledgement of the abundance in our life. And here's my theory is that we always feel gratitude. The problem is that the mind interferes with that, because the mind looks for expectations, and our expectations of what should go right and wrong comes from our environment. So you could have an amazing house, you could have a great routine, you could be healthy, you could have great kids. You will easily sit there and be miserable because the expectations of life do not meet some social or made up expectation in your mind of what is not there. So the mind focuses on the lack, so the lack becomes bigger. So for example, in my case, the lack here is that there's a lack of organization around me. There's a bunch of chaos because we're moving around. We have to set up everything. My mind can easily go towards the lack, but I have to train it to focus on what is there, which is 99% is good, is great, it's abundant, but the 1 or 2% that's not working, my mind is going to go towards it. Why? Because again, the mind is not there, or the hardware analogy would be the brain is there to protect you. So it looks at anything that is not working as a threat. And it's our job as leader to direct our mind. Otherwise, mind has its own intelligence, and its intelligence has one purpose, one main purpose. The main purpose is to protect you and your family, to keep you safe. So anything, even if something looks remotely threatening, it will give it a lot of energy. So the way I explain this to my clients a lot of times is that, imagine you're in front of a lake, and this lake is a big, vast lake. And on the other side of the lake, you see a tiger. And the tiger could get to you within 30 minutes or so, if it really wants to. You look at that. First of all, it's a beautiful tiger, but then your mind is already assessing. It's like, is this tiger going to come around towards me? We were just in Yellowstone. There were grizzly bears that we saw. It was in a distance. Even bisons were like 2,000 pounds. Some of them passed by my car, and it was passing by my car, and I'm thinking, is this thing gonna charge? Even though I don't think it's a match for a Jeep, but it could make quite a bit of a damage there, and I would have to figure out a way around it, because they were all in mating season. We were told by the park rangers that be careful because they're a bit jittery at this time, and the male one especially. Like you're talking about a 2,000-pound animal, which is as big as an SUV. So, but in that moment, all my mind is doing is calculating what could go wrong. And that's the biggest challenge with the human mind, is that how do you override that safety calculation with putting it in perspective? So, and that's the hard practice of gratitude. And this is why it's in every culture, every religion, is that it's a practice. Are you training your mind to recognize all the things that are going well, which is usually well over 90% for most people, especially if you're in the Western world? Just by the nature of you being here, you've solved for a lot of those survival problems in the world. But the problem is most people are not training their mind to focus on those things. And on top of that, they're adding another layer as, well, you have to be grateful. If you're not grateful, there's something wrong with you. Now we have to deal with the have to part, which doesn't allow us to feel the gratitude itself. And that comes from people's like, well, Well, and this is how you hear from people. Well, I know I should be grateful, but I don't feel anything. Well, because they're trying to feel, they're trying to deal with the obligation of feeling grateful versus actually noticing the things around them. Their mind is interfering. And that's why, and I want to define joy here. And this is why I said, and we proved it in the beginning, is joy follows gratitude. And all joy is an effect. It's not, you cannot find joy. Joy is an effect of you feeling, your system feeling that things are right. And at the basic level, it's feeling like you have the things you need to live, survive, and you have the things you need to thrive with you and your family or your community at large. And at the more complex level, joy goes towards fulfillment, it goes towards purpose, it goes towards bigger things. Now, the thing that people do is they set goals, but they forget about all the things that they have around them. They don't have a clear purpose that they're living right now. They don't have a clear vision that they're living right now. So that other side of their mind that's going, well, I need to create that success to feel happy. If I do that, I'll feel happy. If I live my purpose, I'll feel happy. But purpose is lived now, not in the future. When I fulfill that thing, I'll feel happy. There's a condition that their mind gives them. But the opposite of that is, okay, first recognizing in this moment, if you, and Eckhart Tolle talks about this more, is that whenever you have a lot of things going in your life, it's business challenges, life challenges, all kinds of things. In the moment, bring yourself in this moment to ask yourself the opposite, because our mind is able to answer, what is wrong in this moment around me? Not in my mind, but around me. And check in. Is my body in a good shape? You check in generally, okay. Is my family safe? Great. Am I able to breathe? Yes. Do I have enough sustenance around me? Yes. Food, water, and everything. Am I in any immediate danger? No. When you're just doing those checks, you will notice that actually most of the things are right. And your mind can put that tiger on the other side of the lake, on the other side of the ocean. Oh, it's way farther out. I don't need to worry about that threat. But just checking that matters. But the way most people operate, as Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about it, is that most people operate as if there's a tiger chasing them constantly. This is why people say they're in stress mode. Stress is another term for fear. It's just these are cover terms. And one of my coaches who worked through this with me said, well, don't call it stress, just call it fear. Why are you calling it stress? Because what you mean is fear, because your biological reaction is that of fight, freeze, flight. What is happening? Your muscles are tensing up constantly. Your breathing is shallow. You're not noticing things around you. Your vision is tunnel. You're not seeing the bigger picture. Those are all the responses to you under threat. We give it other terms like stress, depressed, overwhelmed. These are all cover words. But as soon as you call it fear, be like, well, what am I afraid of? What is wrong in this moment? And if there's nothing wrong, then you can make a decision. You can train, and it's a moment by moment choice and decision. It's not a one-time thing. It's constantly reminding your mind that things are good. And yes, I am working on the 5%, 2%, 10%, which I can improve. And that's also, there's also another biological state that I've shared before, is we have a term for it in biology. We call it rest and digest state. As soon as an individual goes into rest and digest state, or even a species, guess what happens? Well, for a species, it means more procreation. Population goes up. By the way, if you look at it, the Earth's population is exponentially going up, even though it's going to slow down at some point. Why? Because there's more abundance. There's less safety compared to in the past. Now, a lot of people will look at that going, no, the world is in chaos. No, compared to what? If you go back 100 years, it was much worse than right now. If you go back to 200 years, much worse. Right. Even in the worst parts of the world. And this is coming from somebody who, like, the place we lived in was nowhere close to where we are here. But even living in a poverty third world country right now is much better than living there 100 years ago. Why? Because there were a lot more challenges we hadn't tackled at that time. And from an individual point of view, what that means is when you're in a rest and digest state, which means you're at peace, you're in joy, you're able to use your prefrontal cortex from a brain point of view more. You're able to be calm, which means your conscious decision making is better than you reacting. You become less tunnel vision. You see the bigger picture. You see the reality more closely versus when you're under threat. But under threat, you're always reacting to things. Now, of course, there's an element of fear that will always be. Now, the question is, how high is the dial, the tone of it in your mind, in your experience? And one last thing I'll share before we go to sharing is, for example, just me being on the road with family, there are all kinds of threat challenges, like real challenges. Like you're in an RV, there's like I'm with a baby and two other kids and my wife, and we're sometimes stopping nighttime in different places that are unknown. Right now, we're in the middle of nowhere. I don't know what. So I'm always like, as somebody who's a provider, protector, I look at myself that I have to assess things constantly. So I do use that part of my mind. It's important, but I have to constantly put it in perspective. Once I've assessed the threat, then I can actually live my life. And I know people who do the same thing. They're always constantly, and I meet them, they're constantly watching. They're never living. They're constantly looking out for things to go wrong. And it's just that that part of their brain is hyperactive. We do that not just with physical threats, we do that with imagined threats like business going wrong, economy going wrong, things going wrong in our relationships. We focus on the 5, 2, 3, 10% versus the 90% that's going well. What does that do? It takes us towards a state that doesn't allow us to think, doesn't allow us to feel, doesn't allow us to engage. So my challenge for everybody here is, can you practice gratitude, not from an obligation point of view, is just from a noticing the reality of your state for the next few days. Very little things, doesn't have to be big things. It can be big things as well, but small things from, hey, my health is good, my family is good. Can I feel that? If you and that's the answer. If you can't feel it, that means you're just creating a concept based on obligation. There's a block there. You've bought into an obligatory concept that's not real. But if you can feel the gratitude, the natural progression of that is joy, bliss, connection, all those kind of things.